You're sitting in the parking lot of your apartment complex, the engine is still running, and you're just staring at the little notification on your phone screen. It's from the bank. Your checking account balance is, I don't know, let's say $43.12. And you're mentally doing that math we all do, where you're calculating exactly how many days until Friday, and whether you have enough leftovers in the fridge to avoid going to the grocery store, or if you can somehow survive on peanut butter and tap water until your direct deposit hits. It's this incredibly quiet, suffocating panic. Because it's not just about the $43. It's about the fact that if your car makes a weird noise tomorrow, or if your tooth starts throbbing at 2 a.m., your entire fragile little financial house of cards just collapses. You're one flat tire away from a full-blown crisis. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to glide through financial challenges while others are constantly stressed about their bank account balance. And honestly, when you're sitting in that parking lot with $43 to your name, the standard personal finance advice sounds like a total joke. Just save 3 to 6 months of expenses, they say. Oh, really? I can barely keep the lights on, but sure, let me just magically pull $15,000 out of thin air and put it in a high-yield savings account. It's so disconnected from reality. But what I've realized is that the problem isn't the math of saving money. The math is stupidly simple. The problem is the psychology of it. The gap between knowing you need an emergency fund and actually building one comes down to a massive perspective shift in how you view your money, your time, and your own survival instincts. And once you crack that code, getting to that first critical milestone, which is $10,000, doesn't just become possible, it actually starts to feel inevitable. So, let's talk about how to actually build a $10,000 emergency fund fast. Not in 5 years. Not by skipping your daily coffee and hoping for the best, but by fundamentally changing the way you interact with your cash so you can buy back your peace of mind. To start, we have to talk about why $10,000 is the magic number. You know, a lot of financial gurus will argue about the exact amount. Some say $1,000, some say $20,000. But $10,000 is this really interesting psychological and practical threshold. It's not just a random round number. Think about what $10,000 actually covers in the real world. It's a used car engine replacement. It's a month and a half of living expenses for a lot of people. It's a sudden cross-country flight for a family emergency plus a couple of weeks off work. It's the sticky situations. It's the things that would normally send you spiraling into credit card debt at 24% APR, digging a hole that takes you 3 years to crawl out of. When you have $0, you are essentially renting your own life from the bank, from your landlord, from your employer. You are completely at the mercy of the universe. But when you hit 10 grand, something shifts in your brain. You walk differently. You speak differently at work. You're less terrified of your boss because you know that if they completely lose their mind and fire you tomorrow, you aren't going to be evicted on Tuesday. $10,000 is a fortress. It's the difference between a minor inconvenience and a life-altering catastrophe. And you need to understand that you aren't just saving digits on a screen. You are literally purchasing a completely different version of yourself. A version of you that isn't paralyzed by fear every time a check engine light comes on. But if 10,000 is the goal, how do we actually get there without it feeling like you're slicing off pieces of your soul to save a few bucks? This is where most people mess up immediately. They try to save $10,000 the wrong way. They sit down, look at their budget, which is usually just a vague idea of what they spend, and they say, okay, I'm going to cut out eating out, I'm going to cancel Netflix, and I'll just save the rest. And what happens? By day 12, they are so miserable, so deprived, that they end up buying a $70 takeout order out of pure spite. I've done it. It's the financial equivalent of a crash diet. You starve yourself for a week, and then you eat an entire pizza at midnight. The secret to doing this fast is flipping the entire equation upside down. Instead of trying to save what's left over after you spend, you have to pay yourself first. I know, it's the oldest cliché in the book. But stick with me here, because the way you actually execute it is what matters. The moment your paycheck hits your checking account, before you pay the electric bill, before you pay rent, before you even look at your groceries, you have to siphon off a chunk of cash and move it to a completely separate bank. And I mean a completely different bank. Not a different savings account at the same institution where you can just drag and drop the money back into checking with 2 taps on your phone. You need friction. Open an account at an online-only bank across the country. Make it take 3 to 5 business days to transfer the money back. Build a wall between you and your emergency fund. Because willpower is a myth. You are not going to outsmart your own impulsive brain at 11 p.m. on a Sunday when you see an ad for a new gadget. You have to make it physically annoying to access that cash. Now, where does that chunk of cash come from? If you want to do this fast, you have to realize that cutting back your budget is only half the battle, and honestly, it's the smaller half. There's a hard mathematical limit to how much you can cut. You can't cut your rent below zero. You can't cut your grocery budget to zero unless you want to starve. But there is no limit to how much money you can earn. If you want to compress the timeline of hitting $10,000 from 2 years down to, say, 8 months, you have to attack the income side of things. And look, I get it. The idea of a side hustle sounds exhausting. Nobody wants to hear, just drive for Uber, when they're already drained from a 50-hour workweek. But you don't have to do something soul-crushing. You just have to be a little creative about monetizing your existing skills or your unused stuff. We all have a graveyard of electronics in a closet somewhere. Old phones, tablets, gaming consoles, that guitar you bought in college with the best of intentions. Sell it. All of it. You'd be shocked at how fast you can generate $2,000 or $3,000 just by liquidating the physical clutter in your life. And there's a double psychological benefit here. Not only are you funding your emergency fund, but you are physically clearing out the debris of your past, which, weirdly, helps you feel more mentally clear and focused on the future. Beyond selling things, think about what you can do on a micro scale. Can you tutor someone in math for $40 an hour? Can you walk dogs in your neighborhood on Saturday mornings? Can you set up a simple freelance profile doing basic video editing or copywriting? You don't need a business plan. You just need a temporary, intense burst of effort. Treat it like a sprint. Tell yourself, I am going to hustle like crazy for the next 6 months, and then I can stop. When you have a clear end date in sight, the suffering becomes a lot more bearable. But let's get back to the spending side, because we still need to plug the leaks in your boat. And the biggest leak, the one that nobody really wants to admit to, is the silent subscription creep. It is insane how much money we bleed out on a monthly basis for things we don't even use. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You signed up for a free trial of some streaming service 6 months ago to watch one specific show, and you just never canceled it. You're paying for 3 different music apps. You have a gym membership that you aggressively avoid. You subscribe to a meal kit service that now just sends boxes of wilted spinach to your door that you immediately throw in the trash. Go through your bank statements for the last 3 months. Line by line. Be brutal. Cancel everything that doesn't bring you active, measurable joy or utility on a weekly basis. If you haven't opened the app in the last 30 days, it's gone. You can easily find an extra $100, $200, even $300 a month hiding in these phantom subscriptions. And here's the trick. Don't just absorb that saved money into your general checking account. The moment you cancel something, immediately set up an automatic transfer for that exact amount to go to your emergency fund. If you cancel a $15 service, set up a $15 automatic transfer. You were already living without that $15. You were already spending it. Now, you're just redirecting it. There's another massive psychological trap we have to dismantle if you want to hit this goal fast, and it's the trap of lifestyle inflation. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about this. He got a promotion at work, a pretty solid one, and his pay went up by about $800 a month. And I asked him what he was going to do with it. He looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Well, I'm finally going to upgrade my apartment and maybe lease a slightly nicer car." That is lifestyle inflation in a nutshell. You get more money, and instead of using it to buy your freedom, you immediately buy a more expensive cage. You have to consciously decide to rebel against that. When you get a raise, when you get a tax refund, when you get a bonus at work, your brain will immediately try to figure out how to spend it. It will whisper to you, "You deserve this. You worked hard. Treat yourself." And sure, maybe you take 10% and buy yourself a nice dinner to celebrate. But the other 90%, that goes straight into the fortress. You have to train yourself to view extra money not as an opportunity to upgrade your lifestyle, but as an opportunity to upgrade your security. Because a nicer car doesn't help you sleep at night when you're worried about layoffs. $10,000 in the bank does. Now, I want to take a quick second to talk about something that happens around the $2,000 or $3,000 mark, because I think it's really important that you are prepared for it. When you first start saving, it's almost fun. You go from 0 to 500, then to 1,000. You feel like a financial genius. But then you hit that middle section. You're at $3,000, and suddenly the progress feels painfully slow. You realize you're only 30% of the way there, and the end date feels like it's a million miles away. This is the desert. This is where most people quit. They get frustrated, they see a pair of shoes they want, or they have a minor inconvenience that isn't really an emergency, like wanting to go to a concert, and they just raid the account. They pull out $500, telling themselves they'll pay it back next month, and the whole psychological momentum is destroyed. When you hit the desert, you have to rely on systems, not motivation. Your motivation is going to disappear. It always does. This is why we set up that automatic transfer on payday. You don't have to decide to save the money every 2 weeks. The decision has already been made by a past version of you who actually cared about your future. You just have to let the machine do its job. Keep your head down, keep doing the side hustle if you need to, and just walk through the desert. Don't look at the total balance every single day. Check it once a month. Let the magic of compounding consistency do the work. And finally, we need to redefine what an emergency actually is, because if you don't do this, you will sabotage yourself. An emergency fund is not a, well, I really didn't want to cook tonight, fund. It is not a, my friends are going to Vegas and I want to go, fund. It is not a, I got a parking ticket because I was too lazy to move my car, fund. Those are lifestyle inconveniences, and you need to figure out how to absorb those within your normal monthly budget. An emergency is a sudden, necessary, and unexpected expense that threatens your ability to live, work, or maintain your health. The transmission dies. The emergency room visit. A sudden loss of income. That's it. You have to be incredibly ruthless about protecting this money from yourself. It is a firewall between you and financial ruin, not a slush fund for your impulses. Building $10,000 isn't just a math problem. It's a test of your identity. It forces you to decide what kind of person you are going to be. Are you going to be the person who lets life happen to them, constantly reacting to disasters, always one step behind? Or are you going to be the person who looks at the chaos of the world and says, not today. I am prepared for this. When you finally log into that separate bank account and you see that balance tick over to $10,000, the feeling is indescribable. It's not just relief. It's a profound sense of respect for yourself. You prove to yourself that you can delay gratification. You proved that you can execute a plan. You proved that your future self is worth more than a momentary impulse. Look, I know it feels overwhelming right now. I know looking at a zero or a negative balance makes you want to just close the app and ignore it. But you have the power to change your trajectory starting with your very next paycheck. Open that separate account. Set up the automatic transfer. Go find a box of old stuff in your closet and list it online. Stop the silent bleeding of your subscriptions. Just start. Because the life you want, the one where you aren't sweating in the parking lot over a $43 balance, is waiting for you on the other side of that $10,000 mark. You just have to be willing to go get it.